Hello, welcome back to Bake It, one of Grand Prairie Public Library's YouTube programs where we bake different things. Today we're going to make bread. Wanted to take a little bit of a break from cookies and just do something different, although I really like cookies. We're making just a really basic honey oat bread. We're doing a whole wheat bread because I like them that way. That's what I make. That's the recipes I have. And it's really easy. It's just a little bit time consuming because I'm not using a bread machine because I don't have one. So to start with, you need your ingredients. You need water, you need milk. Mine's in the microwave. I heated it up just a little bit. We'll get to that. You need honey, you need salt, you need yeast. I don't really care what kind of yeast, just you need yeast, which is weirdly hard to find right now. You need oats. And then you also need flour. Now in this bread, I'm using two different types of flour. I'm using whole wheat flour, and I'm also using bread flour. You don't have to use bread flour. You can use all-purpose flour, and the bread should work out just fine. They just have slightly different contents, and I like the way that the bread flour makes the bread. So that's what I use when I make this, but it should work just fine with all-purpose flour. You also need butter, and I'm pretty sure that's literally everything you need to make bread. It's really easy. It's just a bit of work. So to start off with, we have 1 cup of warm water here. Our hands are washed and clean. And of course we will be using the oven. So as always, please make sure that you talk to your parent or guardian before using the kitchen. So to start off with, we need to get the yeast going. It's got to start working. So I have a cup of water and then a cup of milk that I warmed a little bit in the microwave. It's actually hotter than it should be, but it should be okay because the water's kind of cool. We're not trying to boil or scald the milk. We're just trying to make sure that the mixture for the yeast is warm and that it will dissolve the honey. There's no sugar in this recipe. I like the way honey tastes, if you can get good honey, which is sometimes harder than it should be. So 2 generous tablespoons of honey. Make sure you get it all there. If your honey is not runny, it really doesn't matter. It's a bit harder to measure. The crystallized honey is totally fine. So we've got the milk, the honey, and the water all kind of mixed together. You can see the honey is trying to settle on the bottom, and I kind of want it to dissolve in there. That's okay because we're going to add the yeast, which is going to eat the honey. So for this we need 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. 1, 2. This is like the only time I ever use my 1/4 teaspoon measurement. Weirdly enough, doesn't come up that often. Let that do its thing. So while that's proofing, we can get the rest of the bread dough started. This is mostly flour. So we're gonna start off with the whole wheat flour. So we need 2 1/2 cups of whole wheat flour. So that is 1. So 2 1/2 cups of whole wheat flour. And then we're going to use the bread flour. As I mentioned before, feel free to use all-purpose flour. We'll change the texture of the bread a little bit. But if you are going to make bread a lot, I wouldn't bother buying special flour. So 2 cups of this. So it's not like a whole wheat bread. It's basically like partially half whole wheat, half white. Slightly more on the side of whole wheat. 1 cup. So that is 2 cups of red flour, 2.5 cups of whole wheat flour mixed in here. Then we're gonna throw in some oats. Just 1 cup. That goes way over there, so that can wait. Cup of oats. Then we want 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. If you only have salted butter, just don't put in as much salt. I hate measuring butter. Mine's still kind of cold and we're gonna melt it. So I am going to weigh it instead. So I need about 57 grams. Sorry, I'm so lazy. This is just easier for me. Use my generous knife for butter I always use. That's 53 grams. If you use a knife, please be careful. That one's really dull. That's the only reason you see my finger so close to the blade. 57 grams. So I'm gonna melt this. So I just pop that in for 30 seconds. It's not melted all the way, which is fine. We'll finish melting as I stir it. So there's my 4 tablespoons of butter. And a tablespoon, again, I'm using unsalted butter. So I'm using a tablespoon of salt. If you're using salted butter, probably only put, oh, I don't even know, less salt. Have to experiment a bit. And that is everything you need in this bowl. That yeast mixture's been proofing nicely. I'm just gonna mix this together a bit. Now we're going to dump our lovely foamy mixture, and we're going to just make sure we get all of that in there. And that is everything you need to make bread dough. Now the next step is the one no one likes. We have to knead the dough. You can do this in a stand mixer if you have one. You're gonna need the paddle attachment with the bowl scraper on it. You have to get that separately, as well as the dough hook, which may or may not have come with your stand mixer. Speaking of you have a KitchenAid, that's the one I know. Maybe yours would mix it different. But the dough hook looks like a hook, and you can only use it after you've already really combined your ingredients. So you need to make sure you've got the paddle attachment, and I tried to do it without the scraper because I don't have the one with a scraper, and the other paddle attachment just doesn't work well for this. So half your bread dough gets overworked and half it gets underworked, and it's not very pretty. So it's all combined together. Now we're going to mix it. So flour, just use regular flour for this part. This is important. So it's really common when you're mixing and kneading bread dough by hand to over flour the dough. So this dough is goopy. It's really goopy and kind of gross. Obviously make sure your hands are washed clean, because you're gonna stick them right in there. So I just put a little bit of flour down, and it's gonna be really tempting to just add more flour because the dough is just gonna start sticking. Don't. Eventually it will stop sticking. I mean, it will stop sticking for sure if you add more flour, but it's going to make the dough less yummy, is I think the only way I can think to describe it. So it's better to just work it until it stops being sticky. So it's like a mess. See, it breaks really easily. We don't want that. It feels really goopy and it still looks kind of clumpy. So we are going to knead this until it's smooth and stretchy. And I saw this really cool YouTube video where the guy was like throwing the dough down, and it's specifically for wet dough, which this is. But I can't quite imitate his method properly. So it's definitely worth looking into if you are into bread making. I always think I should look it up right before I make it, but I never do, and didn't seem like the greatest idea to try a whole new way of doing it when I made the video. So as you can see, it is starting to stick to the counter already. Doesn't matter, it's fine. I don't know if my kneading technique is the best. We didn't make bread a lot when I was younger. Mostly because I just didn't have the patience for it. But I've been doing it this way for a while now, and I like the bread it makes, so I send bread pieces flying everywhere. So this takes a long time. Like, okay, it's 4:14 right now. I'll let you speed up the camera. I'll tell you what time it is by the time I'm done. Okay, so it's starting to get a little bit less sticky. Starting to. It's not done yet. This process, it's been like what? It's already been like 6 minutes. This process is really time consuming, and it's really tempting to just kind of skip it or stop before it should be done. But it actually, it's not just for fun. Something is happening while we need it, and I'm not a chemist or an actual baker, but like, this is what makes bread bread. Or the kind of bread that we're making bread. There are different kinds of bread, of course. So if you want to make this, it's gonna take a while. Or you can use a stand mixer. Or a bread machine. Although then you need to get the bread machine used. I've never had a bread machine. I always wonder what it's like. It doesn't seem worth having a kitchen appliance for something I'll use once a week. So. You can see it's starting to become stretchier. Oh, look at how clean my hand's starting to come away. Good. So you see how it's keeping its shape better. It's not as sticky. Doesn't really break as easily. This is all good. All right, so this is good. See how it's picking itself up now instead of staying on the counter. It has a smoother texture. It's stretchy instead of breaking. All excellent traits, or so I hear from the internet. I'm going to plop it back into the bowl. I'm going to pay attention to its size. It's a pretty decent chunk of dough. We want that to double. So I'm going to wash my hands. I'll be right back. So this has to rise until it doubles in size. It takes about an hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet this with warm water and then wring it out so it's as dry as it can be. Well, no, sorry. Before I do that, I'm going to turn my oven on to about 200 and let it just heat up a little. I have my warm, wet towel I'm going to cover this bowl with. And then I'm going to turn the oven off all the way and put this bowl into the oven, because even though it's really warm now because it's summer, the yeast really does need a consistent, nice, warm place to really grow and double the size of this dough. So that is the nice kind of texture we want in our bread dough. So I'm gonna turn that off, put this in, set a timer for 1 hour, and then we will be back. Now comes the easy part. We've got our dough. You can see it's doubled in size. It's quite a bit bigger, which is nice. We've got our loaf pan. So this dough is for 1 loaf of bread. I greased the pan so the bread's just gonna slide out when we're done. I'm using a dark pan. That's what I'm familiar with. And because of that, I'm gonna be eventually turning the oven on to 350 degrees. Some ovens go to 375 when they cook bread, but I think, as I mentioned before, my oven's kind of screwy. The bread is done when it sounds hollow on the bottom, and it's not raw. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna beat down this dough, punch it down, and then we're gonna put it into the loaf pan. So just get it all out of the bowl. There we go, nice and, see how it's so much less sticky now. And then I like to just kind of make it into a square. Doesn't have to be perfect. Then we just roll it up nice and tight so the seam is on the bottom. And then we're going to plunk this into the loaf pan, like that. Now it has to rise again for 30 minutes. So we're not going for the full rise. It's not supposed to double. We're just gonna let it rise in the pan for 30 minutes before we bake it. So I'm gonna do the same trick with the towel and with the oven, and I will let you see what it looks like after 30 minutes. Okay, so the bread has been rising for another 30 minutes. So So it should be ready to go into the actual oven. The oven's off, that's why I'm not wearing hot pads, hot mitts, whatever you want to call them. So as you can see, well, it was a bit fatter on one end when I put it anyway. It's now filled the pan, which is what we want. So I'm going to turn the oven on to 350. And I'm going to put this in right kind of, I don't put it too far back honestly. Again, though I have a stupid oven, for 20 minutes. And then I'm going to turn it and do it another 20 minutes because it helps stop the top from burning. So yeah. Obviously when I take that out, I will need hot mitts. So make sure you have those ready, and then I will talk to you again once it is completely cooked, so in 40 minutes. So the bread's just about done. Got my hot mitts. Be careful you don't burn yourself on the door. Open it all the way. Got a minute to kill. So turn off the oven. You never want to leave the oven on. You're not using it. So we have our bread. Isn't it beautiful? We have our oven turned off. So now it's just a matter of placing it on the cooling rack. This is still very, very hot. So that needs to cool as well. As I mentioned, should sound hollow. And that is how you make bread. I will show you a picture of it once I cut it open. It's good for about a week on the counter in a bag so it doesn't dry out. Or you can freeze it. Happy baking!